This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
This is going to be an amazing episode today. I have a guy here that I've been following for a year or so now. He's a champion. He is a coach. He definitely is a motivational mentor of mine on Facebook. He puts out so many good vibes, and he puts real life authenticity to everything he does. My good friend Mike Claudio joins us today. How are you doing, Mike?
Great, man. How are you?
Mike has a company called Win Rate, right, Mike? Yeah. It's called Win Rate.
Win Rate.
Win Rate. He often encourages his followers and clients to win fast and win often. I want to hear a little bit about that today. He also preaches about the power of becoming disciplined and consistent in order to make success of your duty, your responsibility, your obligation, and to rise above outdated, unworkable middle-class myths and limitations in order to achieve true freedom for themselves and their families. This guy is impacting tons and tons of business owners and people that are following his journey. I want to get into that. I want to hear a little bit about his journey as becoming an entrepreneur, a public speaker, a coach, mentor. He's got a book out that I bought a bunch of copies for because I really wanted to support Mike and everything he's doing for the world. So welcome to the show. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here and hopefully share some nuggets from a head coach perspective.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny when you just called me a coach. This is the first time I've kind of hit me because there's been a lot of, we'll say, negative connotation to the word business coach, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that try to be a business coach. I think what's part of what's made me different or separated me is I built a coaching company. You know, like I lead business owners who are coaches now. And so I think that does make me a little bit different than just somebody out there saying, oh, I'm a business coach and helping spit, you know, we'll say marginal advice to people. But what I really think, and I'm telling you, this is the first time this has hit me like this, and it might be something that becomes more of a consistent theme. So this might be where this happened. This might be where this pivot has happened. I'm truly a leader of leaders. Like that's what I do. That's what makes me different. Is I'm not just a business coach. I'm not just talking about high level and mission, vision, and core values, and I'm not talking about generic sales processes. And I have 6 CEOs that work for me. Like that's rare. People talk about it's hard to attract high performers. I attracted 6 CEOs, 4 of which still operate as CEOs of their company. The other 2 exited in the last 18 months to work. I'm gonna say on my team, on part of the team, but they wanted to be a part of my mission. And I think if I look at the last 3 years of Win Rate, if I look at how Champions Shoes has grown, if I look at how my brand has grown and how guys like you have found their way into my audience, I think truly what makes me different or separates me is I'm not a business coach anymore. I am a leader of leaders. And that might be a corny thing to say, but I really believe it to be true is what the evolution has been like for me over the last couple of years as I've pivoted from head coach, which is what I was, really up until the last 6 or 7 months, into the CEO role of this coaching company and really have become a leader of leaders. And I think that's why I get such good results with high-level CEOs as clients, and that's why I've been able to attract, I think you would agree, the coaching staff that I have acquired are some high-level individuals that are very high performers, great communicators, and incredible business owners in their own right. These aren't people who have never done what we coach and are trying to pretend to know. These are guys who are either actively doing or have run, multi-7-figure businesses who I thoroughly enjoy leading on a regular basis.
Well, I would push back and say that you have that head. Here's what you remind me of. You have that head coach personality, that vibe, that high school football champion, like NFL champion, like just beast mode. like, I wouldn't even say NFL, because those guys get a little bit weaker as they get older. It seems like they get a little softer. I'm talking like that, like just that monster on the sideline that's like going up and down, like that John Gruden kind of but like even bigger, because like you got the body for, you know, you got a bigger build. But you're leading those guys and you're coaching those guys. You know what I mean? Like, and you're always going to be the guy that's going to be, you know, no matter who your technical audience is, you know, it always expands and then it always narrows, right? Like, you have a big audience that's listening to your content, but you probably are only, now you have six, would you say you have 6 or 7 leaders that you're basically mentoring and coaching? Like, that's who you're coaching. And then they're coaching, then they're coaching their coaching clients. You see what I'm saying? And that impact that you're having, and I love the fact that, you know, you look at yourself as a leader of all leaders, right? I just talked to a guy I had on my podcast, did a recording yesterday with Graham Desert, and he's starting a company called the League of Leaders, or something like that. And it's a very interesting concept, right? And I think for people that have the health and fitness and the spiritual and the business, mental, all that stuff, when you can be peaking at all the levels, right? Those are the people that everyone's looking up to and looking for guidance, because they're the ones doing it. I want to hear a little bit about your journey, how you got to this point, because you're a young guy, man. Like, how old are you?
35.
35. So, like, you know, I will say that, like, you know, you have a lot more wisdom and a lot more intensity than your average 35-year-old. So, like, how did Mike Claudio, where did Mike Claudio come from? Tell us about the origins, how you got to this point, and then I want to talk a little bit more about the future.
I think I've always been, you know, even as a kid, I enjoyed hanging out with the parents. You know, I always enjoyed being around older people. Even in my early 20s, my friends were in their mid to late 30s. You know, so I've always been, you know, we'll say old for my age. You know, I've always enjoyed being around older people, more successful, more whatever. You know, especially people who were living a life that I had desired. And that's evolved over the, you know, last 15 years, you know, since I turned 20. But, you know, my part of why I carry the confidence and the maturity that I do now is I failed out of college and got a job at 19. You know, I had, you know, let's say a 4 to 5 year head start than most of my peers. You know, at 19, I failed out of college, got a job, and bought a house. Like, you want to grow up, like, drink away your first mortgage payment. You know, 20 years old going like, fuck, here's the mortgage. Like, you grow up quick when shit like a mortgage payment may or may not get paid because you were an idiot one weekend. So, you know, part of it was I took on responsibilities much earlier in life than a lot of people do. Part of it is you know, one of my core values is continually evolve. I'm always looking to improve, get better at communicating, get better at fitness, get better at health, get better at wellness, get better at husband, father, whatever role it is. You know, continual evolution is part of my strategy. Even before I knew it was one of my core values and it was actually documented as one of my core values. And, you know, all of my businesses operate from the same set of core values. But even before that, I was always first one to show up, last one to leave, you know, the first one to do the extra practice, the first one to take the extra reps, the first one to ask for advice and feedback. You know, I was even in corporate America. So when I failed out of college and got a job, I worked at Verizon Wireless for almost a little over 9 years, almost 10 years.
I lasted there 6 months.
Yeah, I did retail sales and management for 5 years, and then B2B sales and management for 4.5. You know, but even in that world, I was always going to people better than me saying, hey, how can I get better? What do you think about this? How can I do this better? And like, I've always, you know, almost obsessively sought feedback from people. And I was always good at asking questions. I was good at going and asking intentional questions, not just, am I doing good? No, it's like, hey, like I've done this, and this. I feel like this could be a little bit better. What do you think? And like actually asking good quality intentional questions to get good quality intentional feedback. And I've been doing that for 15, 16 years, weekly even. And so I think that's a part of it is, you know, I started maturing earlier than a lot of people who are 35, 36, who maybe didn't even get their first real job until they're in their mid to late 20s. You know, I was 19 with a mortgage. You know, you tend to grow up a little bit faster from that sense. But I think a big part of why I carry myself so well and that I cater the respect that I do from people that know me is, I'm continually evolving in all aspects of life, and I have coaches. I have a coach right now. I've had a coach for a while. Like I live what I preach from that perspective, but continual evolution has been a consistent theme for me for as long as I can remember. I've always wanted to get better. I've always wanted to, exceed expectations. I've always wanted to be better tomorrow than I was today. And whatever that was, if it was playing baseball in college, it was the extra swings I was going to take. It was the coach I was going to hire to help with my pitching form. It was, doing skip levels in corporate America and asking like key leadership who most people were afraid to talk to. We used to schedule a quarterly lunch with the executive director in our region because I wanted to learn more about what his priorities were. So I knew I was aligning with them. If I wanted to get promoted into leadership in my region, I needed to know what the top guy was thinking so I could work in that direction. Hey, if that's where you want to go, this is what I'm doing right now. What can I be doing differently to get better or to be better so that you can use me as a more valuable asset? Because like that's just the way I looked at things. Like if I'm not working in the direction of the people that I need to like be aware of and need to be aware of me, like what am I actually doing? And now as a business owner, that turned into my audience, it turned into my peers, it turned into key people that have now joined my team as CEOs that want to coach other people. Like that's how I scale a coaching company effectively, at least. And at least we're early. It's still in its first year of scale, but it's working.
Where does that intensity, though? Where does that intensity and that drive to do all those things you just mentioned, where does that come from? Like, what happened in your life where you just decided that,
honestly,
like, you were gonna...
I think it comes from extreme insecurity and severe issues with feeling enough.
Where did that come from?
I don't have like this is what happened. I dealt with a lot of never feeling like enough growing up. And I don't know, like, my parents were loving parents, but like I was the oldest child and my dad's the son of an immigrant. And like, my dad was really good. Hey, great game, but you could have done this better. Right. And like my mom was the same way. And it wasn't even tough love. It was like, they were just looking back now, they were just sharing feedback, but like, it was never like great job, period. It was always great job, comma, but. And so I truly believe that they loved me and they were proud of me. And, at the time though, it was like, well, if that wasn't enough, how do I become enough? And then it like, I don't know, they just kind of, and when I failed out of college, I think that was a really pivotal point because neither one of my parents understood or accepted that. They're both highly educated individuals. Like my dad's a nuclear engineer. My mom has a doctorate, like in education. I failed out freshman year. Like, and so like,
yeah, you're like, you're not going to be the family genius, right?
No. And ironically, I'm the most successful. So like, well, that's a different story, right? But
it depends on how you measure success though.
If you look at it as enjoyment in life and financial success, I am the most successful.
There you go. Me too. I like that.
My mom's going to retire tomorrow, actually, after 43 years in education.
Wow.
And she's never
made 6 figures. Thank you for your service, Miss Claudio.
She's never made 6 figures in a year, right? And it's like, I love her and she's been fulfilled. And like, but she's stressing right now. Like, what is she going to do next? And I'm like, I want to be 40, not worried about what I need to do next, right? So it's just a different mindset. So success is definitely relative and subjective. But, if I look at, that was a really hard season for myself, my relationship with my parents, because that was really where like I aggressively diverted from the path that they thought was best for me. And it took a long time for them to accept the fact that I could be successful without a degree. And, so that was part of it, proving them right. Part of me was, I woke up one day after failing out of college. I was living on my parents' couch at the time. And, I made a decision. I mean, almost an out loud declaration. I'm not going to allow the lack of that piece of paper to define me. And I don't know why I knew to even think or say that at 19 years old. I don't know where that piece, where that commitment, where that belief, but it was almost a chip on the shoulder that was like, fuck you. I'm not going to let this stop me. This is not going to define the rest of my life. And I turned that into a very successful corporate career. And then obviously have turned that into a successful entrepreneurial journey over the last 10 years. But I
love
don't know
hearing
where
their stories.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that moment where I said, I'm not going to let this lack of piece of paper defined me, and then I turned that into like a 10-year chip. Like that didn't go away quickly. But that was a big part of what
we're more
drove
similar
me.
than wow. Yeah. We're more similar than you think, man. I have a story kind of like that. It's loving parents, but it's always like I always heard about like there wasn't enough at home, right? They didn't have fulfilling jobs, they didn't have enough money, they didn't have enough time. And that gets baked into your head as a kid. And then you see this whole world out there. You're like, wow, can't you just go do that? Why don't you just go? Hey, mom, why don't you do that? Hey, dad, why don't you do that? It's like why settle when like you can go do that? Like this is America. Where do you think? So that's like your hell. Why, right? Like you're running from that. But like, what were you running towards? Like, who was influences in your life when you were young? What did you see that was possible? Like, who were you around that you saw like something bigger and brighter out there? Did you have anybody that influenced you in a positive way?
Not, I mean, like I don't want to say, not in the way that you're asking. And so, if you brought up the win fast, win often, you know, it's a tagline for the business, but for me, it was a lifestyle. And so I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I was capable of. I just knew that I needed to win tomorrow. Like I needed to win today. And I've lived the majority of my adulthood, like literally more recently with a bigger vision, but like for the first 10 years in corporate America, it was like, how do I get better today? And I lived like that for like 10 years. Like there really wasn't so much of I was comparing myself to what I was working towards. It was I just want to be better than I was yesterday. And because what actually forced me to leave corporate America, or I say pushed me out, was like I was really being set up to take on this business sales manager role. And like I remember waking up one day going like, the guy that's in that role is miserable, and that's going to be me. I don't want that. I'm better than what I'm doing here, but I didn't know what that was. I just went searching for it. So I didn't have like what I would say a real example until 2019 when I learned about Arte. Like Arte was this like walking through this door to this world I didn't even know was there, and that was only 3 years ago. Like I was in my 30s when I uncovered what real entrepreneurship looked like. And so
Tell me a little bit more about Arate.
I mean, Arte is led by Andy Frizzell and Ed Milet. They built the Arte Syndicate to be an environment where real advice was given to real entrepreneurs. And when I joined in 2019, I really did not have a lot of entrepreneurs at that level in my ecosystem. I didn't know them. I don't think I even fully understood what entrepreneurism was based on the leaders that I worked for in the entrepreneurial world. Like the two business owners I worked for when I left corporate America, neither one I would look at as like an example of somebody I wanted to be like. And not that they're bad people, they just weren't who I wanted to be.
They had nice lifestyle jobs, probably.
Well, and yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of business owners that just like have really good jobs.
Yeah, but even that, like, looking back, what I didn't know at the time, what I know now, like, they really were not very good leaders. And, like, neither one of them liked me telling them that. So.
Well, that's why you're doing your own thing.
Right. Yeah. And and like, if someone asked me today, like, Mike, what would it take for you to become an employee again? I'm like, man, that leader better be strong-willed and understand what he wants and how to articulate it well, because I'm going to tear him apart if he doesn't. But. So I don't think I knew what I wanted. I just knew I didn't want what I had anymore. And like I remember like that my last year in corporate America, I was miserable. I was gaining weight like crazy. I was unhappy. I was drinking a lot. I remember looking at Tiff going like, I'm better than this, but I don't know what that is. I'm going to go try to figure it out. Are you on board with that? Because when I left corporate America and I went to work for that small construction company, I took $100,000 a year pay cut. Because I was making like 150, 160 grand a year at 24, 25. At 27, I made 55 grand. Because just go figure it out. Like, I'm better than this. I know I'm worth more. I know I'm capable of more than what I'm doing here. But I can't tell you what that is. But I can tell you I'm not happy here. So I have to take action in a direction. And that's been a big part of my journey into win rate has been like, I know I'm not happy where I am. So I'm going to keep taking action in a direction because I don't know where I want, but I know I don't want what I have or am right now. And so I'm not sure I had that pulling direction as much as I had a pushing direction. I'm like, I want to get away from that. But I don't know exactly where I want to go or who I want to be or what I want to be like. And honestly, like I've kind of developed it very aggressively on my own. Really defining what winning looks like to me and being unapologetic about it. Have you actually read my book? I know you bought a bunch. Did you read it?
I skimmed through the first couple chapters.
Okay, cool. So
I'm ADHD, man.
No, that's fine. Look, I don't.
Yeah.
Look, buying the book doesn't mean you have to read it. I get paid for it anyway. Like you don't have to read it for me to make money on you buying the book. So, yeah, the 13 cents.
That's a whole other podcast. I'm going to talk about the book business. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's just
But I think like that's like every entrepreneur. Like that's the thing. Like you got to write a book, right? Like and. Tell me about that journey. Tell me about what's in the book.
Before I get into the book, though, the reason I asked is because the true separating experience for me was December 2019. I attempted suicide.
Wow.
And so I'm not going to read the book. The whole first chapter is about it. But what happened on the other side of that was I realized I was living per the example in most of my decision what other people thought was best for me instead of what I thought was best for me. And on the other side of that experience, I realized I had to go all in on me. What I want, who I want to be, what I want in life, what I'm willing to do to get it, who I need to become. And I started making decisions 100% based on who I am and what I want to be known for. And that's really where you see the man you see now. This version of me is infantile almost in the journey that I'm on. Like this, who I am right now is less than 3 years old.
You're like the baby gorilla.
I am. And I say that.
By the way, I say gorilla because
he
has a gorilla rant, people. Just so you know, I wasn't making fun of him. He actually is a self-proclaimed gorilla.
I am known as a silverback gorilla. When I get heated or passionate, I get very aggressive and loud.
You also look like a silverback gorilla, man. Like,
the build is definitely a big part of it. The body build is the way I'm shaped is a big part of why they call me a gorilla.
Even the big furry beard and everything. Yeah, you're like, yeah.
But I'd say, like, you want to say what was a separator? What was the defining moment? What built me to who I am, honestly, was going internal and being led by my own image and my own definition of what success looked like for me. And if
what was it like on the other side of that suicide attempt? Like, what did you have to, is there a process of like how you go from there to like, just like it clicks to where like you then go like on this rampant mission to like
win? It didn't click. It was probably 60 to 90 days of me still wanting to throw myself in front of a vehicle. Like, it was not like okay, I'm okay. It was a very dark quarter, we'll call it.
If someone's doing that right now, let's give some people some practical advice, because there's a lot of people hurting in the world. What would you tell somebody like if they're feeling that right now? Like how can they get through that to the other side to maybe get some form of success?
So for me, it was survive the next decision. It was it. Like win fast, win often is literally what saved my life. Like, it was not, I need to survive the day. It was not, I need to survive tomorrow, the month, the quarter, the year. Is like, I literally need to make a good decision next, or I could slip and fall and die. Like, I would fall into a bottle. I'd fall in front of a car. Like, I was literally ready to die. And so for me, the image of surviving for my children, because I have 2 sons and a wife, a very loving wife, that I needed to survive for them. And I literally could not look past the next decision. Like, getting up and getting out of bed, doing my workout, drinking my water, just not drinking alcohol. Like, I'm going to decide the next sip I take is not going to be alcohol. Like, it was that short term. It was, if you're struggling with that and you're in the darkness and you're in the bottom of that hole, you just have to focus on winning one decision at a time and you will crawl out of it. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about the year. Don't think about how am I going to find happiness. Fuck happiness. It means nothing to you right now. You have to only focus on what does and what defines winning the next decision. I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to eat breakfast. I'm going to drink water. I'm going to kiss my wife. I'm going to hug my children. That's it. One win at a time. It's the only way. There's no strategy. There's no 12 steps. It's one fucking decision at a time. It's the only way out of it. And people aren't going to understand you, and no one's going to come to your rescue, and no one's going to understand how to help you because no one understands what's going on in your head. No one. And if you look to other people to save you, you're going to resent them. If you look to other people to be your savior, they're going to fail. If you look to other people as what the strength you need, they're going to let you down, and then you're going to internalize that you weren't worth their help. They don't know how to help you. They don't have the skill set. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the words. They don't have whatever it is that you're visualizing that the people you care about most are supposed to be to help you right now. They don't know how. Own it yourself.
They're trying to help themselves. I mean, like everyone's like, it's like we're all on an island. It seems like, and we're all trying to figure out how to get to that next win. And I think a lot of people, you're right, they look for love in all the wrong places. They look for help in all the wrong places. I think it all starts inside. And you have an amazing story, man. That was, I know that's just the beginning of it. I'm sure. That tells me, man, I'm sitting here almost like a guest. I'm like trying to absorb it. I'm thinking like, all right, I got to ask him another question, but then I'm trying to absorb what he said. And I'm trying to I don't know if I'm the guest or I'm the interviewer, but
I'd
whatever.
say anybody who's struggling with that right now, focus on defining what winning the next decision looks like. That's it. And eventually it'll become a winning streak. And eventually you'll start feeling happy. And eventually you'll start doing it for yourself. And eventually the power that others hold over you will start to dissipate. And you'll be able to make clearer decisions and clearer decisions and clearer decisions. And eventually you'll be able to look ahead a week, maybe a month, maybe a quarter, but never plan more than a quarter ahead. You don't know enough and the world is changing too fast. So people are like, what's your 3-year plan? I fucking wake up tomorrow and do my morning routine. That's my 3-year strategy. And I'm gonna do that every fucking day for the next 1,000 days. Outside of that,
if you do that, then you'll hit whatever goals you had in 3 years.
You'll
right?
exceed them. That's the sickening part. Because
10x.
Because look, you've had a very successful career. You've built a very successful business. You have things in your life that are going well. You have things in your life that are going poorly, like everybody, right? But if I asked you, I said, look back 12 months ago, could you have pictured where you are right now?
No,
in life,
not 12
in
months
business.
ago.
No. So if you couldn't, if even the 12-month ago version of you can't imagine where you are right now, today's version of you is 12 months and more intelligent, which means you physically have no fucking concept of where you are capable of being in 3 years. So the only thing you can do is win the next decision for as long of a streak as you can, and you will wildly exceed what you're capable of, what you believe you're capable of. Right, Mr. Benny, if you said right now, tell me where you want to be in 3 years, and I said, okay, focus on winning the next decision for the next 1,000 days, you would wildly exceed it. If you shoot for a target that you think you're capable of, and that's how you make every decision, you will wildly underperform your potential. Wildly.
Yeah.
I made a decision. I heard a podcast. This changed my life. I have not publicly talked about this until now. Like, not this podcast, but like the last, like, literally couple weeks. In 2019, right after I joined Arete, I started 75 Hard. I've done it like 5 times. I've done the full Live Hard program, and like we can get into that if you want. But during that first 75 Hard, it was in the first 2 weeks, I heard a podcast from Andy Frisella on the MFCEO project about what would happen if you focused on something for 1,000 days straight? Not a week till the weekend, not a month, not a quarter. What if you just said, I'm going to focus on this image, and I'm going to make every decision as intentionally as I can towards an outcome for 1,000 days straight? I've thought about that every day for the last 1,200 days. And so right now, in 2019, I did gross revenue of $125,000.
You mean like personal income?
No, like win rate consulting revenue.
Oh, that's all the money.
All of it.
Yeah, that's
2022. We'll do 2.5 million probably. 2023 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2024 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2025 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2026 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2027 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2028 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2029 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2030 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2031 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2032 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2033 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2034 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2035 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2036 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2037 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2038 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2039 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2040 we'll do 2.5 million probably. 2041 we'll do 2.5 million probably
That's
what you're
impressive,
seeing
man.
right now, and if you look at my podcast, just hit 3 years old. I have not missed a single week of a podcast or a YouTube video since 2019.
Well, that's when I really started I've been watching you for a while because, I'm friends with Dan Constantino, and I saw you guys were connected somehow, and then I started following you, and then I saw that podcast thing, and I was like, oh, wow. He's like, this was like a year ago, I feel like, and I didn't have a podcast at that time, and I saw you were just like super consistent with it, and everybody I talked to said, most podcasts fizzle after 7 episodes because like they're just not consistent. And I really always wanted to do it because I really love talking to people. I really love hearing their stories. I really like, communicating that. I like sharing that with the rest of the world. But then I was worried, like, I don't want to be one of those guys that starts something and then don't do it, because I'm almost like doing a disservice to the people listening, right? Same thing with a roofing company, right? Or anything that you do, right? Like if you're not consistent at it, which is sometimes tough for people that have all these grandiose ideas and how to get to the next level, and sometimes it doesn't involve what got you there before. But this consistency thing, I watched you do that, and then I watched your consistent content, on social media. I watched your consistent adding more your CEO coaches to your team, adding awesome high-level entrepreneurs to your organization as clients. And I've just been watching. It's consistent. It's strong. It's like you push yourself. And it's something to like, it's one thing if, a guy does it for like a month or two, right? Like, it's like, all right, cool. Like, like, when's he going to fade? When's he going to fade? Well, you keep going stronger and stronger and stronger, brother. And it's powerful, and it's something that you should be proud of. It's something that I know that you're probably just getting started, and you probably think of like, oh, like this is just the building blocks. Like, wait till you see what's, 12 months down the road, right? Where are you going? What is that vision in your head of like 1,200 days, you've been working on? Like, what does that look like? Will you share that with the audience and put that out into the ether?
I look at business growth as base camps, right? People look at like, well, I want to summit the mountain. No, the summiting the mountain is death. Like that's the end of the journey. So if you look at like climbing Mount Everest, right? There's base camps. I think there's like 6 or 7 base camps on Mount Everest before you get to the summit, right? Well, and every time you get to a base camp, you have to hang out there for a little bit to acclimate, right? Which I look at like business seasonal growth, right? When you get to like 1 million, then 3 million, then 10 million, like those, you have to get there, you have to sit there for a minute and kind of acclimate to the new level. So what you're seeing right now, which is 2 to 3 million in revenue, 6 coaches, about 100 clients, was the base camp I imagined 1,000 days ago. And so now I'm kind of sitting here acclimating a little bit, right? We got to build some new SOPs. We got to get more systems and processes in place. I've heavily invested this year back into the business to prepare for growth in 2023. But I had to sit down at the end of second quarter and reimagine the next base camp. What are we working towards? Not the end, not what am I capable of? What's the next base camp? And just like climbing Mount Everest, there is no timeline that's set between base camps. People say, well, I'm going to do $1 million by the end of next year. And if they don't, they either minimize the target and be okay with it, or they completely fail or give up, right? They're like, well, I'm going to do $1 million. But in like November, they're at like 700. Like, all right, cool. Maybe we're a $750,000 company. No, I'm not going to stop working until I get to the next base camp. Because if you stop between base camps on Mount Everest, you die. There's no like, you don't like just hang out in the middle and say, we'll stop here. No, you got to get to the next base camp or you don't survive the journey. And so there's no predetermined timeline on the base camps, in my opinion. In business, you can't put a timeline on things. There's no difference between December 31st and January 1st other than like your tax strategy, right? Like there's no difference. People think like, oh, next year will be different. No, it'll be fucking Monday. It'll just be another fucking Monday. There's no difference year over year. It's the journey has to continue. So right now, I've actually written it out on paper, the next base camp. 10 million. 555 clients, average client value $18,000, 40 coaches, 21 support staff members, 120 events a year, and I'll have a 25% net margin based on.
Did you guys hear that? See how specific he was? See how he rattled that off? It wasn't just the first time. I can tell you
exactly what I'm going to pay every person on the team. I can tell you the exact salary I have to pay every person on the team. I can tell you exactly what my coaches are going to make. I can tell you exactly what the team leaders are going to make. I can tell you exactly how many clients we're going to have. And I like to estimate, more challenging than less challenging, right? So I'm basing it on an $18,000 average client value. Right now, we're probably averaging about a $25,000 average client value per 12 months. We're actually working on that report right now. It's between 20 and 25. I don't know the exact number. So 18 is a low conservative if we're going to try to scale at volume in coaching. But we might, if I could take that from 18 to $36,000 average, I only need 200 and, what is that, 56 clients or something like that? Or 276
So it's funny that you said 555 clients. And this is totally a rabbit trail and totally off topic. But that's how, I don't know if you know anything about NFTs and Gary Vee and what I'm doing with that project, but like, so Gary Vee has this, you know who Gary Vee is, right?
Yep.
Okay. So he has this NFT project called V Friends, and he's got this token called Gift Goat where there's 555 gift goats. It's funny. Just, and his favorite number is 5, but like, so there's 555. It's a crazy number because it's a big number. Right. And those are lives. Those are lives of men and women who are CEOs of their kingdoms, and the impact, and then they have probably at least, because your average client has at least 10 people in their organization. I would agree. Right. I would say probably right.
Fair. That's probably
5 to 10 people at least minimum.
Yeah. That's probably
fair. And they're all growing at the same time as you help them grow. They're growing those people. Yep. So just multiply that times 10. That's 5,000 immediate lives and then all the lives around those people that you're affecting, right? You can get that number up to 5 million here pretty quick, right? Like just knowing how much impact you're going to have and like what drives you. And then that clear vision of how you're going to get there makes operating week to week, day to day, month to month so much simpler, right? And so much less stressful probably. Because now you just have to go execute.
It makes failure less relative because, failure on Tuesday in August of 2022 is irrelevant to 1,000 days from now. Like you couldn't even tell me your biggest failure from Q1 right now if you wanted to. But I bet there was a point in Q1 you were freaking the fuck out about something. But you probably couldn't even tell me what that is right now.
I could tell you it wasn't even me. It was God. I mean, there was freaking the winter was so bad. But yeah, no, my failure, no, I couldn't tell you what my personal failure was.
There was something you stressed about in Q1 that right now is irrelevant.
No idea, man. That's so big. Yeah.
If you're worried about next week's payroll, you're not doing your job as the CEO. You're just not. And so for me, like I'm planning to build a company that generates $10 million a year in revenue. And I'm going to focus for the next 1,000 days on that. That's the next base camp. And 1,000 days is it's just a number. It's not a deadline. It's not like if I don't get there in 1,000 days, I'll be done. But it's 1,000 days. If I focus on this for the next 1,000 days, I believe the team I have right now of high performers with the support staff we currently have in place, we take this one day at a time, making one good decision at a time, throwing one good event at a time. I believe the next 1,000 days I can create a $10 million company with 61 employees, 40 coaches, 21 support staff members. I can tell you exactly what each one of them are going to make.
So 3 years from now, in September of 2025, we can listen to this podcast and we can see how wildly. I think what's going to happen is you're going to wildly exceed that, right? Because I can already tell, right? But like we'll be able to see, then we'll be able to look back and do one of those like flashback podcasts and be like, all right, what's the next?
You say 555 people is a lot. I'm saying like that's a fraction of our target audience.
Oh yeah,
there's 500 contractors in most cities. I'm talking about needing 500 in the country. If not, we have about a dozen clients in Canada now too. So like, if I can't find 555 people between the United States and Canada that will benefit from the services that we bring at the level we're delivering at right now, then like, fuck it. I'm moving on to something else. It's not possible.
So is your ideal client a contractor? Like that's leading to
right now our target audience,
1 million, 100 million.
Ideal client is, home service or construction company between 1 and 5 million. That's our target audience right now. We have clients that are doing 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year. But like if we look at our average client is between 1 and 5 million. That person who's built something on their own and knows they need help to get to the next level. That's our target audience right now.
Do you take on clients outside of the home improvement business?
We have a very small percentage right now. We're probably 90-10, 90% contractors, 10% outside of the industry. And even of that 10%, probably 90% of them are support members of the industry. Like one of our friends, Joe Hughes, one of my clients, he supports contractors. He's a digital marketing training company. But he supports contractors. So even the people who are outside construction kind of are still, attached to the industry. I have a handful of people who just like Mike Claudio and they're friends of mine and asked me to work with them who I've taken on that are not in the industry at all, but it's a very small percentage of our overall client base.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of the things that you're teaching people, motivating people on, it's pretty, you can apply the same principles anywhere, right? And it's not like you're trade specific either. So at the end of the day, I find that interesting. Let's get into the whole world of, like, one of the things you mentioned when you first led the call with is coaches. It's a very vague name. It's very, general. There's a coach on every corner now. Everybody, that's the cool thing to do, is be a coach, be a consultant. There's like tons of people doing it poorly. There's tons of people being average. There's only a few that probably do it to the level of what you're trying to do. Tell me the difference of what makes your coaches and what your style is better than what the vanilla style is out there.
Well, it's a fair question. I try not to get into this conversation a lot because I don't know a lot of the other coaches that people say are bad, right? Because I don't associate with them. There's a few that I know that are very public, that are very bad at what they do, but like I'm not going to get into that pissing war.
No. I don't need names or anything. I just
I get it.
I'm sure you have
generally
clients.
try to avoid the question. Just being honest.
Yeah. But you have clients, so they probably have had a coach before. Probably, it's not you're not their first coach, right?
Yeah.
And the reason they came to you is because they didn't get fulfilled somewhere else. They didn't do the work. They probably didn't do the work. It's probably at 50-50, right? Like they probably didn't do the work, but the coach also didn't make, just hold them accountable, right?
No, I think people that come to us are ready to do the work because they know that, like, one of our key differences, I'm going to answer your question. I believe I know the answer to the question. I just was saying I tend to avoid the question. But aggressive accountability is part of what makes us different. Like, we are going to show up on time, and we're going to hold you accountable to showing up on time. We are going to have our task list done. We're going to hold you accountable having your task list done. In our contract, it is part of the requirements of membership of our programs that you will take equal or greater ownership in your success that we will. Like, I fire people who don't do the work. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for a bad client who doesn't do the work. That's a waste of my coach's time because we are limited by time. Right? Time is our biggest asset as coaches. Like, we don't do group shit. We do one-on-one shit. We have events, but like 90% of our revenue comes from one-on-one coaching. So time is our asset. So if you're not going to show up and do the work and show up on time, we'll just fire you as a client, find somebody else who will. And we're not a low-ticket offer. Like, we're a high-ticket, in my opinion, offer. And so, but I think the number one thing that makes us different is every coach on my team either currently or has built a multi-million-dollar construction company. Like, we have 7 coaches, including myself right now. 4 of them are currently running multi-7-figure construction companies. 3 of them exited a construction company in the last 18 months. So, like, we don't just talk about what we do. We do what we talk about. Like, we don't say, here's what you should do. We say, here's what we did when we hit that situation. We don't say, this is the process you have to follow. We say, what's your process? Well, in my experience, here's some tweaks you might want to put in. Let's figure it out together. I don't sell an out-of-the-box offer. We don't sell Mike Claudio's way to run a construction company. We sell our experience is ahead of yours. Allow us to use what we have done to help you accomplish what you say you want to accomplish. That's what I think makes us different.
Yeah, that's how often do you guys get together? Like how often do you meet not you necessarily, but your the typical client? How often are they meeting with their coach? I see you guys do these awesome quarterly events.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a workout or if it's like a business meeting because sometimes it looks like you guys are getting down and dirty. Sometimes I saw that one in Florida. You guys were looked like you had like the military out there. You guys were doing like Navy SEAL training or something on the beach.
No,
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, so if we look at the Champion Circle, which is one of our 12-month offers, it runs January 1st, December 31st. You get 2 calls a month with your coach. You get 1 group call with everybody that's in that program a month, and you get 1 2-day quarterly event. So, but you have access to your coach between calls for like, hey man, I'm struggling with this, or hey, this came up, what should I do? So it's not, the calls are more for the aggressive accountability. The between calls, like the text messages I get, like, hey man, what should I do about this? I give them that 5-second piece of advice because I've been through it that allows them to make a very quick decision. That's really where we make the majority of our impact. The calls are great. The accountability, the coaching is awesome. It's the, hey man, I ran into this thing real quick. Here's a quick voice note. And I say, hey man, like based on what I went through, I wouldn't go that route because it could lead to this. I would go this route. I'd set it up this way, and I'd organize it this way. Trust me, I went the other route. It didn't work. That's why I do it this way now. And that one 30 to 45-second voice note could save that business owner months, if not years, of headaches, right? How many people have you hired wrong that cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars that could have been avoided in a 30-second voice note from your coach? That's really where the impact of our coaching comes in. It's not so much the strategies or the systems. It's I help my clients make decisions in the heat of the moment so they don't have to overthink it and or make the wrong decision that might take them months or years to recover from.
That's valuable. I mean, it's almost like the cost of not do, like the money that you save them is probably 10 to 100x what their investment is in your program. You can't necessarily see it, but like it's like hard to measure that stuff, sometimes because
we have
it's like
some ways that we measure it, but like I have a money back guarantee since day one. I've had 100% money back guarantee in our contracts. If you don't get the value you were expecting from us, I will give you 100% of your money back. And over 300 clients later, I have yet to refund a person that I did not fire as a client. I've had 3 people I've given refunds to. All 3 happened because I fired them as a client within the first 6 weeks. Everybody who's completed the program, or like we have about a 60% renewal rate past initial contract period, and we have never given a refund to somebody who has gone through the program completely.
That's awesome.
Not once.
That's putting your money where your mouth is. Let's pivot a little bit because enough about that stuff. I want to know about this little nonprofit shoe game that you got going on because that's really kind of like that's where the Mike Claudio heart comes out. I always see this big gorilla and this rant guy and this big old, but you're just a big teddy bear inside. I know you are.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, the secret's out. I mean, so.
No, my gorillaness comes from love because I want people to. I'm so passionate about helping people that sometimes you got to get aggressive to get them out of their own way. That's just the truth. And people like me for my aggressive honesty. We're aggressively honest and we're aggressively accountable. Like that's what most business owners need because, Benny, there's very few people in your life that are going to tell you the truth because you're more successful than they are. You're their leader. Like part of having a coach.
It sucks.
It sucks being alone because like you need somebody to call you on your shit, right?
Yeah.
That's what I do. And I come across as aggressive sometimes because I'm not afraid to do that for you. And sometimes because your ego gets in the way, not you specifically, but a business owner who's built a successful business, sometimes they need to get punched in the mouth a little bit. Like, bro, you're fucking wrong. Shut up. Just listen. And that's
I'd rather get punched in the mouth ahead of time than like have to wait to like have a lot of pain and suffering on the back end for those decisions. For sure. I can tell you that. I mean, because we've all been there, right? I mean, some of us, there's near-death experiences that are on the line if we don't get our act together. I mean, So
the nonprofit, a Champion's Shoes. You're going to say, well, how did you start it? So I'm just going to tell you the whole story.
Go ahead.
We got enough time here. So for as long as my wife and I have been married, which would be 10 years this year, at the end of every year, we do what we call the balancing of our blessings. Like we've had a very successful marriage over the last 10 years. Just both in business and not, but early in our marriage, it was just like we were happy. We didn't have shit for money early on, so we just go volunteer our time or something. Then that turned into writing checks to organizations or the church we went to at the end of every year, and we give money every week to the church. Like we give, I'll be honest about it, like I give $400 a week to our church.
That's not 10%. That's not 10%.
No, it's not. What? Let me get there. Jeez, dude. Just call me out on tithing. You don't even haven't heard the whole story yet. Well, we started at like $25 a week, and then we went to $50, and then we went to $100, and then we went to $200, and then we went to $300. Now we're at $400. But we decided we want to do more with our money that we could control, right? Not that the church doesn't do things with it, but like we go to Elevation Church, which a lot of people know, and Stephen Furtick's an incredible communicator, and I've loved being a part of the organization. But like they're pretty honest about 12% of what they make goes back to the community. And that's awesome. Like part of what we pay for is so that we have the awesome place to go and we have the music and we have the worship and everything else. So that's part of why I give that money. But we decided in 2020 we wanted to get the kids involved. And like writing a check isn't impactful to kids. And so we were on a family walk middle of 2020 and Tiff and I were talking about what are we going to do this year to balance our blessings. And I said, well, why don't we do something with the kids that they can understand and enjoy? And we said, well, I asked MJ, my oldest, he's 4 at the time. I said, MJ, what do you love right now? And like most 4-year-olds, it's like what's closest to his face. Like, I like my new shoes. And I was like, cool, why doesn't dad take $5,000, we'll go buy 100 pair of shoes, and we'll send them to kids in need who can't get new shoes. And he's like, oh, that'd be awesome. We can get them the red ones. And like, there was this great family moment on this walk. And like, that was it. It was originally going to start, I was like $5,000. I was going to buy 100 pair of shoes, and we were going to send them to kids in need, whatever that looked like. I didn't have a plan for that part yet, but that was the plan. And I was driving home from the gym in October 2020, and I remember thinking to myself, that's not how Mike Claudio does things. Like, why am I limiting this to 100 pairs, and why am I limiting this to this year? Like, that doesn't make sense. That's not how I do things. And so I literally went home from the gym that morning and Googled how to start a nonprofit, and I followed the steps. Like, people overcomplicate the shit out of stuff. I just literally went home, Googled how to start a nonprofit in South Carolina. Oh, here's a step-by-step directions. Submit this email, submit this form, start this company, send this, submit this document. And it took about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks or so to complete the process. Got my letter back from the IRS saying you're approved as a 5013C. Got my letter back from the state saying you're tax exempt. And I was like, cool, let's do something with this now. And so Black Friday 2020, the day after Thanksgiving, we officially launched our initiative, we'll say, just made it public. And we originally, again, plan was $5,000 and 100 pair of shoes. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas 2020, we raised like $35,000 and sent out like almost 600 pairs of shoes. Like we did this out of our garage, and we hand bought and hand wrapped every fucking pair of them. Like, yeah, nonprofit, really fulfilling, incredibly time consuming. Like, we were literally wrapping our kids' gifts like Christmas Eve because we've been wrapping shoes for 5 weeks.
Don't you have like a warehouse too, like somewhere?
Not at that point, not yet.
Oh, you didn't have the warehouse yet,
no.
So it was just out of your garage, right?
Like out of our garage.
Yeah,
we're living in a townhouse with like a 1.5 car garage. Like we hadn't moved yet. Yeah. And so, because we didn't know what to expect, we were just
the Hellcat was parked in the street.
I didn't even have the Hellcat yet. No, dude, like when we sold the house in 2019, we went all in on making our financial goals successful. Like we drove paid off cars for years. You know, we lived in a townhouse for years. Like we went all in on like, we're going to invest. So one of the biggest mindset shifts, we're off topic real quick, is like people look at like doing things like that as a sacrifice. I looked at it as an investment in my future, what I want my lifestyle to look like. So we downsized houses. We drove paid off cars. Like we didn't go on vacation in 2020. We didn't do any of that shit. I didn't buy the Hellcat till
either did anybody else because of COVID.
Say again?
Either did anybody else because of COVID.
Yeah, but like, thank God I did do that, or I would have fucking bankrupted myself in COVID because my business got destroyed. Like I lost almost all my clients.
Listen, I did the same thing. Not to get this is really off topic. I did the same thing. I went from like a 3,500 square foot house, and now I'm in a nice little, cute, cozy, 2,000 square foot house, and I flipped the house, and my house payment's $800 a month. Everybody's like, "What? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, like I'm investing in myself, in my future." Yeah.
It's an investment.
All right, tell me more about tell me more about the kicks. Tell me about the shoes.
So we buy the shoes, and then we're like, okay, let's do something with this. And so we continue into 2021 with it, and we probably did, I don't know, like 1,500 pairs in 2021 because 2021 was a huge growth year for win rate. Like we've grown 300% 4 years in a row, and so last year was a huge. Like I took on a ton of clients, and like we didn't. Well, I wouldn't say we backburnered the nonprofit. We just didn't have the time to put into it. And so beginning of 2022, we hired an executive director and an events and volunteer coordinator. And like for back to schools, we do 2 big pushes a year. We do back to school and Christmas. And so in the last 8 weeks, we've purchased and sent out like 2,600 pairs of shoes. Because we hired.
Where do you send them to? Like, how do you find places? How do you pick the places that you give the shoes to?
We work with organizations like Big Brother, Big Sister, Boys and Girls Clubs, schools, and churches to get us like lists of kids because we buy for the child. We don't just like buy bulk shoes and send them. It's like Susie, age 5, shoe size 2, female, right? And so we go buy for Susie, and we have a whole stickering like system for inventory. We sticker the box because every box gets wrapped. There's a process. Like we've built our strongest and most defined SOPs are in the nonprofit right now. Like it is systemized as hell down to our ordering process, our stickering process, our labeling process. It is a fine-tuned machine. down to even how we wrap them, and like every pair gets a handwritten card, every pair gets a pair of socks, every pair gets a pre-posted thank you card so the kids can practice gratitude and send something back. Like, it's a comprehensive process that we have documented to the T. But so over the last
awesome.
18 months or so, we've raised $400,000+ and sent about 5,000 pairs of shoes so far, and that started from an idea to send 100 pairs out. And so now that we moved to we're in the Greenville area now, just outside of Greenville, and now we're starting to build a more local presence, and we've definitely started building some relationships that'll help us get to the next level. But right now we're kind of taking it one day at a time, one problem at a time, winning one decision at a time, and the mission has grown. I think a lot of people understand the concept of not being able to afford new shoes for school. It's really an anti-bullying movement for me. Having nice new pairs of shoes to go to school with minimizes your risk of getting bullied. That's just the truth. And because kids suck, that's just the truth. Kids are mean. And so if I can help one kid not get bullied, or one kid, because the handwritten card we write says, "We believe you are capable, go be a champion." And if one of the biggest things I've learned about underprivileged communities is the lack of hope, that they can be something, that they can accomplish something. And if I can get one kid to put that handwritten card in his bathroom mirror, and every day he looks at it and knows that he is capable of something, that's enough. That's worth all of it to me. So you're right. $400 a week is not tithing, because we put the rest of that money into our mission at A Champion Shoes.
Hey man, everybody's got their thing. I was just kind of busting your chops a little bit, got the senses going a little bit. So that's good. So one thing that I ask all my guests, it's kind of like, I don't know if I got this from Joe Hughes. I think I got it from Joe Hughes. I can't remember. Rapid fire questions. Imagine that you're on an island and you're by yourself. There's nobody else on the planet Earth. You can take one book with you. What book are you taking with you?
The Bible.
You can take one movie with you. What movie are you taking with you?
The Rookie.
Oh, wow. Look at you. I like that. That's a good one. I haven't heard that one yet, so that's cool.
I can watch that movie 100 times. It doesn't get old.
Oh, yeah.
The mindset of baseball, just it's so fun for me.
That's awesome. So let's see. Book, movie. Oh, restaurant. What restaurant you putting on that island?
Chipotle.
What do you order there?
Oh, I got a double chicken bowl, brown rice, corn salsa, cheese, guac.
Is that how you keep that body in shape? Yeah, flexibility.
I know guac is extra, but on my island, guac is not going to be extra.
Well, you're going to be the guy making it, so don't worry.
That's right.
All right, you're allowed to take one. You're allowed to go on one trip, and you can go anywhere in the world for 1 week. Where are you going to go?
The Amalfi Coast in Italy.
Have you been there before?
No, we had planned on going, and then she got pregnant with MJ, and then it's just kids and stuff.
Stuff. I got a baby coming any minute now, so
yeah.
All right, and then you got one 24-hour period that you can get anybody to that island with you. Past, present, future, famous, not famous, doesn't matter. Who's that person going to be?
No, it's my wife, 1,000%. No question.
That's awesome.
No one fulfills me or makes me feel like myself more than she does. And 24 hours with anybody else would be wasted, because I'm gonna go back to being alone anyway. I'd rather have my wife there.
I have this vision to do a podcast with you and her. I want to hear about your attempted suicide, and then how she reacted, and how you guys kept that marriage together, and how everything through all the bumps and the ups and downs. I feel like that'd be a good podcast for people to hear. I don't know if you guys have ever done anything like that before or talked about that
a little bit. We've definitely excelled as communicating as a couple.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot about that, and she's actually started what she calls Mrs. Wincredible. It's like a support group for wives of entrepreneurs, because it's a really hard position to fill. And so she's actually gotten a lot of fulfillment this year pouring into other wives of entrepreneurs. So that's something that she's been really passionate about.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you being on the
interview.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on the show. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you other than just Facebook, Mike Claudio?
I mean, that's honestly the best. I mean, if you want to go to winrateconsulting.com, right? I mean, DM me on Instagram. I'm not hard to get to. I'm pretty accessible.
Cool. Well, listen, if you got value out of this show, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions for me or Mike, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, have a great week and be good to yourself.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.